What should you do when you finish the first draft of your book? Do you know? What I recommend people do is I go through and have a look at their first draft themselves and make sure that there's no obvious mistakes in there. Now, when I say obvious mistakes, I don't mean going down to proofreading detail. I mean things like if you've explained to somebody there's 4 ways to achieve a particular result and you've listed 3 ways or 5 ways or no ways, then of course that's a mistake. You've introduced some material and you didn't explain it to people properly. When you're giving your book to other people, this is when you'll want to put your draft images in the book. You don't just want squares where things might appear. You want to put in some images to suggest what people are going to see. Now at this stage, because your book isn't going to be printed with these things in there, you can use the comp images from a stock photo website, you know, the ones with the little watermarks on. You can use those for mocking up purposes. And you could use Google Images just for mocking up purposes because we're only showing it privately to a few people to suggest what we mean. And then you can go ahead and purchase proper images you've got the copyright for later on. That's another option that you've got available. You need to look through your book with a critical eye and look for things that could be improved before you show anybody else. You don't want to give them a half-assed draft book basically because they're going to think you've not put in much effort to give the reviewer something that they can actually have an opinion on. If it's so full of mistakes, it's going to be really distracting. It's going to look like you don't care about your book and it's going to look like you don't care about wasting people's time either. So it's really not in your interest to do that. So give it that little health check before you send it off to your reviewers. When you've had a break for a day or so, then you find you get fresh eyes with your book and you can go through it with a more critical eye and look at things that you may not have spotted when you've been busy in the week trying to keep up with the word count. Then once you've done that, get some feedback from other people. Ask them what they like about the book. Ask them what they dislike about the book. Ask them about what worked well. Ask them what was confusing. Ask them if there's anything missing. Should anything be taken out? Does anything need explaining in a different way? Was an example difficult to follow? Did they follow some of the instructions you've given and break something or misunderstand something and have a negative consequence that you weren't anticipating? How do you make sure that other readers don't come unstuck when they're following your processes? So these are the things you can get back at the review stage. It's important that you tell your reviewers, please don't just proofread the thing for me. That's happening twice later on, okay? An initial check and a final check. What I want from you is how you feel about the material as a whole. Does it work? Will it get people good results? Tell them that and you'll get much better feedback from your reviewers. I recommend you give them a form to fill out so that when you get the feedback back from them, it's in sufficient depth and it's all in the same sequence so that you don't have to flit around trying to work out what they meant. They tell you what they think about the cover. They tell you what they think about the introduction. They tell you what they think about chapter 1 and so on. They tell you what needs to come out. They tell you what needs to go in. And it will all be in the same sequence because you've given them a form. It helps them as well because not very often is it really that you get asked to comment on a draft book. They've probably got no experience of doing that, so the more you can give them in by way of instructions, the better the review process will be and the better your final book will be. So that was some tips on how to give your book a draft health check and how to speak to reviewers to make sure your book's as good as it can be. If you'd like some more hints and tips, then pop along to letstellyourstory.com where there's free training and information and tools that can really help you with your non-fiction book. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Colette Mason and I'll see you on another video.